Are you going to play right now? Yeah, I love this song. By the way, I mean, this is no secret. The song Hero is about Kurt Cobain, loosely based on Kurt Cobain, right?
I think it means something else.
Me too. Right. I have a whole different feeling about that song.
What's it mean, Robin? Put me on the couch, man.
I think it is about Kurt Cobain.
Maybe.
And you found out that your hero was just an ordinary guy and he couldn't handle it.
I think it's about your hero is a guy who you can't believe is your hero because eventually they disappoint you. It's guys who should have been your hero and weren't. I think it's about your hero is a guy.
We'll talk about that in a minute. So it's the last few days of Christmas break, and I've been doing some lesson planning, but I wanted to make sure that I've slowed down and really covered the importance of culture, and in this case, especially in United States II history. About a year ago, I made a video about why I think the 90s were the last great decade to grow up as a child. And I think people that grew up during that time can say this, it seemed simpler. You know, since then, I've made a point at my students' request, by the way, to really focus on the cultural significance or footprint of the 1990s. I even had my students write on this last semester, and one thing I asked them was, why do they think they see evidence of the 90s coming back, whether it be in fashion, 90s reboots of franchise movies, the resurgence of sort of cult classic films, even to like Taco Bell's Decades menu. I mean, you see it all around. But one area that I was surprised to see my students take an interest in is 90s music, which surprised me. It seems like most of the music that Gen Z is interested in, a lot of it is pop, rap, hip hop, and country. And let's face it, there is really not a mainstream rock scene at the moment. But the 90s was such a great time for music anyways, because there had never been a time when more genres of music were more mainstream than then. Now, 90s kids like myself argue that the last great period we had for rock music was in, of course, the 90s. And a lot of people argue that the rock scene in the 90s changed with the death of Kurt Cobain. And these 90s homers will also argue that Kurt Cobain's death was also the death of the respectable grunge rock scene of the 90s. And the rock scene becomes so diversified and watered down and commercialized. Nirvana did not pioneer the Seattle grunge scene. That scene existed prior to Kurt Cobain's rise.
Right here, the second of tonight's 2 world premiere videos. It's from the Seattle band Nirvana and their second album, Nevermind. Here's the planet's first look at Smells Like Teen Spirit.
But when MTV chose to play Smells Like Teen Spirit, people literally remember where they were when they heard that song. They had never heard anything like it. The hair metal scene had largely gate-kept rock music up to that point, and that was sort of the bubble-bursting moment for many people who had not heard grunge music before. But when Cobain dies in 1994, the rock scene splits off into a variety of different experimental directions and tributaries, and the post-grunge period begins. It seemed that rock music took a more introspective, a little more polished appeal that the grunge scene did not have, maybe. But this is the point that I want to make. Great rock music did not die in the 90s. It actually continued into the early 2000s. That's biased opinion, but I've got thousands of other people that will also argue the same thing. So real quick, hear me out. When we arrive in 2000, a lot of those post-grunge experiments, they only continue, but they also continue to evolve in something in even more diverse directions. I will say that the 2 subgenres of post-grunge that do carry over into the early 2000s, it seemed at least, was the punk revival scene. Deeply rooted in skater culture, and despite their comedic, playful approach, these bands still explored deep emotional topics of the confusion and pain of adolescence, and sometimes even political protests, such as Green Day's American Idiot album, which really called out the American response after 9/11 in our involvement in the Middle East. And then, of course, it became Blink-182. Blink-182 is essentially the sort of anthem sound of that punk revival in the early 2000s. You also have other bands, of course, that have this similar upbeat punk appeal, such as Sum 41. Of course, Fall Out Boy. And I believe that the other scene that really carries over into the early 2000s and only grows bigger is nu metal.
All right, you guys, listen up. Thank you guys very much for being so good to us today. We appreciate it. This one is going to be our last song, so if you guys have any energy left that you want to spend with us, let's do it right now. You ready? Let's go!
Limp Bizkit, Korn. Linkin Park, y'all.
Crawling in my skin, these wounds, they will not heal.
Love this band. The older I get, I love this band. Nu metal tried to bring in certain influences of traditional metal, rap, grunge. And I think that's one thing I like about the 2000s rock scene is it becomes hard to put certain bands in a box. For example, My Chemical Romance.
What's the worst thing I can say? Things are better if I stay so long and good night.
Incubus.
I wish you were here.
Coheed and Cambria.
Dear Angelina, I wish you so. Watch over me. You got me on the outside looking in, but I can't see it all. I'll keep you my dirty little secret. Don't touch. Not saturate. Not saturate. If I could be like that, well, I would give anything just to live one day. I just wanna break you down so badly. Well, I step over everything you say. I just wanna break you down.
There were attempts in the 2000s to somehow, as clumsily it might have been, but to exhume the Kurt Cobain grunge sound again.
It's been a while since
I think you see this with bands like Puddle of Mud, maybe Stained.
I tried too hard, and she told my feelings like a head nod, and ripped them away.
Maybe Nickelback.
'Cause we all just wanna be big rock stars and live in
top houses driving 15 cars.
I like Nickelback. Leave Me Alone. I like that band. Their 2005 All the Right Reasons album. I thought almost every song on that album was great. And of course, let's not forget the female vocalist and the bands of the 2000s.
Cause I've seen love die way too many times when it deserved to be loved. I'm moving forever. I've got to break through.
Evanescence, Paramore, Avril Lavigne.
Tell me why they have to go and make things so complicated. I see the way you're acting like you're somebody else, gets me frustrated.
A couple of genres that seem to be unique to the 2000s was the indie alternative rock scene, The Killers,
Jealousy, turning saints into the sea, turning piercing lullabies.
Death Cab for Cutie,
Meet me at your worst, for there will be no stone unturned or bubble.
Muse,
I want to exorcise the demons from your past.
Mute Math,
To be that love
one of mine and Rachel's favorite bands. We actually saw them in concert in Birmingham in the mid-2000s. Incredible concert. You know, earlier in the video, you saw the 1999 Howard Stern interview of Dave Grohl talking about his connection and influence and admiration he had for Kurt Cobain. Dave Grohl is this interesting, rare creature that links two periods together in a very important way. He was the drummer of Nirvana.
I was the quiet one in Nirvana. I was the drummer.
But he goes on and becomes the front man of one of the most respected bands of the late 90s and early 2000s, which is Foo Fighters. You know, anytime Dave Grohl's interviewed, he's going to be asked about Kurt Cobain. And as great as the Foo Fighters are, they don't carry that same cultural footprint that Nirvana does. And this video is to make a case for the validity and the greatness of the early 2000s rock scene. But one of the main differences of that scene, it seems that the music tries to live up to industry standards instead of the other way around. I think another reason that Cobain's death and Nirvana in general is so important to the rock scene is you could argue that that was maybe the last time where rock music was revolutionary and as a countercultural force. You know, Cobain was seen as the voice of a generation, and I don't have to like that, and you don't have to like that.
She has me like a Pisces will.
Challenging certain mainstream societal norms with raw and rebellious lyrics. With his passing, I believe rock as a scene loses some of that rebellious energy. That doesn't make it any less great. I love all kinds of music, but I hope that rock as a genre and all the subgenres that come with it can one day inhabit a mainstream position again in some way. That's my hope.
To a long and